Hello, one and all, and welcome to the Consistent AK podcast. My name's Luke, and I'm joined with Nick, the Whippet Good, and we're doing another in-depth episode. We're doing Clerks II, so it's the next Kevin Smith film I'm going to talk about, and we have a wonderful guest from the Candare podcast. Jeremy is joining us, so please, as always, sit back, grab a cup of tea, or grab a beer, or grab some sort of beverage, and enjoy. In the intro, we're joined with Jeremy from the Candare podcast. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello, thank you guys so much for having me. It's great to be back. I think last time I was here we talked about Batman, and that was a hell of a lot of fun. But Clerks II, I mean, come on, guys. Thank you so much for including me on this.
Oh, no worries. Well, Clerks II is, I think I said in the previous podcast, it's my favorite of the Kevin Smith Askew-verse films, so I'm very excited as well to talk about it. It was the sixth film that was part of this universe, and it came out in 2006. So I was just a young man at university drinking my way through my degree, and it was actually a really low budget. It was 5 million, which is pretty small actually compared to even some of the previous ones, and it did 26 million at the box office, which was a pretty good return.
Ooh, yeah.
So we were saying on the last episode was for Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back that it did 10 million, I think, a return, and we were like, is that good these days? Or well, back then, and it was pretty good, and that's even better. Sure. So
yeah,
good job, Clerks II.
This is also the longest gap between a View Askew flick, isn't it? Between Strike Back and Clerks II, I think is the longest break in between the films.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah, must be 4 or 5 years. Yeah,
I think you're right.
What were you doing, Kevin Smith? What was he doing?
Taking his time to make Clerks II a masterpiece.
Taking his time to make Clerks II, yeah. So the nice thing about this, obviously, it's a sequel to Clerks, and it kind of brings back Dante and Randall, and they're in a different setting. They're not at the is it called the Quick Stop? I can't ever remember.
Yes,
Quick Stop, yeah, and the rental thing, and they're in movies now. That's where they work, and I think this one, I don't know, it's probably best to start a bit with the cast, because this has a really good cast because of Elias, Rosie Dawson's character, Becky, I think her name is, if I remember right.
Yeah.
Just to say, I watched this about a month and a half ago now, so it's it wasn't a recent watch for me, but I've seen it more than any of the Kevin Smith films, so I feel like I know it pretty much back to front, apart from names, which I'm shit at. So,
which even if you'd seen it yesterday would still be the case.
Which I could have seen it half an hour ago, and I will call the actors by I'll have to just pick one of them, and they'll always be just the actor's name or the character's name. I'll never go I'll never get both. So
never blend the two. It's one or the other.
I'll never blend the two. But it's really good. I mean, it's really good, isn't it? It's really fucking funny. Like there are definitely 3 standout scenes that have me in hysterics every single time. But you both really like it as well, right?
Oh my God, yeah. It's like you're saying, the best, my favorite in the View Askew universe. I could be wrong about this. I was trying to think earlier. Is it the first one of his films that kind of carried a message, like a moral message, if that makes sense? Were there any beforehand that did that?
Possibly only Chasing Amy.
Yeah, I think Chasing Amy. That's the only one I would think of.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's why this one stands out for me. This movie really hit me at a point in my life where I needed it. When it came out, we were so excited. We went to the theater to see it, and you find out that this is Dante's film. Not that that's a secret, but it's all about his feelings about his placement in life, where he should be versus where he actually is. And that's, for me personally, that's exactly where I was at that time. So I related so much with Dante and everything he was going through. Like that scene where he's driving through town, and you hear 1979, and he's looking into, you know, people's windows and seeing their families and being like, I want that, or do I want that? Should I want that? Why don't I have that? You know what I mean? Which is,
Yeah.
again, kind of where I was. And by the end of the film, Randall says something that not only, you know, makes Dante pull his head out of his ass, but made me kind of do the same thing. He's like, why don't you stop trying to live your life the way you think it makes sense to others, and just live it the way it makes sense to you? And boy, that was a message that I needed so bad at that time. And when I got it, it was such a weight off the shoulders. So aside from just being a great film, lots of funny points, it really hit me in a way that none of the other View Askew movies ever had.
Wow. I mean, that's the thing with that's the thing with Kevin Smith's writing, right? Even
Yeah.
even in the ridiculous, you get something like from Randall, or like in Mallrats, he's in there when they do the love thing, the game show.
Yeah.
There's some,
Yes.
there are some bits in there that are kind of like hard hitting, and they're emotional, and they hit you right, even though they probably shouldn't because of the context, but they do. And I think you know, it's great. I mean, it's awesome to hear that like had an impact on you, that one line, because I remember that line every time. I think it's like you know, lights a fire under Dante's ass, doesn't it? Which is
it lit a fire under my ass. I mean, I was at a point where I was thinking, like, seeing people around me, what they were doing versus what I was doing in life. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing as well as I should be. But you know, it didn't. After hearing that, it's like, wait, I'm right where I should be. You know, if that was for me, that's where I would be. I don't know. Does that make sense?
yeah, it does make sense. It's also interesting how that line was probably just thrown away by so many other people, because they're probably still laughing at, like, you know,
Pillow pants.
the pillow pants and the sexy stud and everything that's just come before it. But the fact that you can pull something like that from a film like that just is a testament to Kevin Smith's writing, isn't it? That's what I think. So
would agree.
it does make sense, yeah, definitely. So pillow
yeah.
pants, Jesus,
so good. I think that was the thing that I also took away from it, was that, again, it's sort of talking about how like how it's crafted, in that it is this film that has its really silly moments that are hilarious, but it also gives you these real moments kind of peppered throughout, of just people trying to figure themselves out and figure out, you know, if what they've got is enough.
Right.
And that's kind of something that only Clerks can do in this series as well. Like, when you look at the first Clerks, that's kind of there as well, in that it's, you know, do we want more than this? Like, are we happy with what we've got?
Right.
And then obviously throughout the rest of the kind of View Askew stuff, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And we were saying with Strike Back that Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back is like the end game of View Askew, and that it's basically like every character that has ever been in a View Askew film is in that film, and it ties everything, and it does it in a really big and bombastic way. But with Clerks II, it sort of feels like it's starting this new phase, to use the Marvel analogy. And this kind of phase almost feels like it's going to be more heartfelt, a little bit more retrospective, a little bit more sincere, and there's a bit more kind of oomph to it. Even if you do still get the big over the top stuff like Kinky Kelly and whatever else, but
sexy stud.
Yeah,
so stupid.
But I think that, as you said, like, that is a like massive testament to Kevin Smith as a writer and director, that he can kind of just completely hit you out of nowhere with something that is really well written and poignant. That is sort of the crux of the film. Like, at the center of it is like, this is it, and it ultimately comes down to like two people having a conversation, and it's a conversation that, like, you just can't help. Like, there's no way you can turn away from that conversation. Like, you're in it. And yeah, it is really, really solid. Like, it's great. Yeah.
I've heard people say that, you know, Quentin Tarantino's writing is so good because every line that comes next is the line that should come next. It's, you know, written very much like that natural conversation would kind of take place. And I feel the exact same thing about that conversation between Dante and Randall at the end when they're in the jail cell. It's just perfect. No matter how many times you see that, you know, it still is impactful. It never gets boring. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So one of the scenes I want to just get out of the way first, because I think it's one of my favorite scenes ever in a comedy film is the Lord of the Rings Star Wars
Oh, I've got it
bit,
written down too, man. I'm
because
so glad you brought that up.
even though it's only like 3 minutes, right? It's still so good because they're so smart about it by putting like a couple of people in the background that are listening and they're kind of agreeing with what Randall's saying, and just I don't know, because there's so much stuff like that. I mean, because I work in a comic shop, right, and I hear these
Right.
conversations several times, like people disagreeing, especially amongst my staff, like this is good and this is bad, and like this is better than this. Especially, I mean, ironically with Star Wars, like when the new trilogy came out, the Rise of the Skywalker one, there were some of us that just liked it, but we just didn't care that much about it. Like we are just like, that was a good film, and everyone's like, what are you fucking nuts? Like that was terrible. Like this was awful. I was like, why was it awful? Like it was just fine, wasn't it? But again, then I'm very like with the Marvel stuff, I'm very protective over the Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
Even I understand some of it's not good, but that's why this conversation is so good, because from the minute Elias says like one ring to rule them all, and that guy looks at him like, what? This guy is just, that's such a like a loser thing to say, and then all of a sudden it's not, like, because that's what Kevin Smith wants you to think, like that guy thinks Elias is just weird.
Right.
But then he's like, he's got a ring in his pocket, and he starts talking about the whole thing, and then just Randall in the background, just kind of like, what the fuck? Like, Lord of the Rings is shit, and the whole scene just escalates. And I was again crying at the cinema when Randall is doing the walks. Like, the first film does the walk, second film does the walk, and the third film, and then he mimes the ring going into the volcano, just like shrugging his shoulders. Like that bit, you don't even need the words. It's just perfect, and I love that. I love that whole bit so much. Even the guy throwing up at the end. That's just how much he gave. That's how much
That
he
was
cared about Lord of the
perfect.
Rings.
It
It's so
was
good.
perfect, because what's he say? Then he walks in and they all, like, the Hobbit see Frodo and they give each other this look like they're just gonna start bricking in each other's mouth or something like that.
Yeah, he's like, and after the suck fest,
That's what
Sam
it
goes
was.
over to Frodo and he gives him like, yeah, he drops a brick in his mouth or something like that. And
Suck fest.
the guy's sick, and just Elias, because his reactions are so good. The guy who plays him, I can't remember I think his name's Trevor something. I can't remember.
Trevor Furman.
Trevor Furman, yeah.
Mhm.
And he's just disgusted. Obviously, throughout this whole film, he's pretty much disgusted, right? Until he's stoned at the end, where he's like very excited by everything going on. But in this, he's just like, he's so upset. He looks so upset with Randall, but he would never ever question Randall half the time.
Right.
And I just love it, because I think we said before as well that it's just the amount of times Kevin Smith's probably had those kinds of conversations, or he's been in groups of people that have had those discussions, and it probably just wrote itself, right? It's probably just like, that's going in the film. I don't know where Pillow Pants came from, but that Star Wars Lord of the Rings thing is
Do
definitely
you
something
want
he's
to
just
know?
like, perfect. I'd love to know. Tell me, Kevin Smith, what does it mean? Where did it come from? So it's probably in that. But I've got a big book on Kevin Smith. It's probably in there somewhere. But I just think that's such a good scene, and I remember that for every time I watch it. I look forward to that bit, because it doesn't ever get old for me. I think it's really funny, and even more so now, because there's been another trilogy. There's been the Hobbit trilogy. There's been the TV show for Lord of the Rings, and there's been prequels and all sorts for Star Wars, and it's just, people just love either of them so much, and both obviously at the same time. But like, just Randall just dissects it perfectly. It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
it made me think, like, was the Lord of the Rings film really boring? I can't remember. Like, but it doesn't. It's awesome. But anyway, very
I
good
mean,
scene.
if you're comparing them to Star Wars, boy, this is going to be a taboo thought, but I would say probably in comparison. But I mean, I love Lord of
Yes.
the Rings. But another great thing about that scene, it kind of shows the generational gap. I mean, although that guy who was arguing with him looked to be about the same age as him, but this older generation saying Star Wars, the ultimate trilogy, and now the newer generation. I just wonder, I was almost half expecting in Clerks III for there to be some kind of debate, whether Star Wars or Harry Potter was the better
Yes. Yeah.
series.
Yeah. Gosh, I forgot. I was thinking about that, because that was the other thing that, like, just around the time that they set that up, they mentioned the fact that Transformers film was getting made, and now we've had like 9 million Transformer films.
Oh yeah, so
There's
many.
another
Yeah.
one coming out. Yeah.
There is. Yeah.
Um,
Jesus. I can't even tell with the Transformers films, like, what is what anymore. I loved the first one when it came out as well. I know we're not talking about Transformers, but I don't know where it's going. Like,
Yeah.
no idea. Just give me the animated film and the first Transformers, and I'm all right. I don't know if I need any more now. I'm just so confused.
The first one was cool. I enjoyed it. The first Michael Bay one, I mean, it was all right. It had its problems, of course, but and I also enjoyed Bumblebee. I thought that
Oh
one
yeah,
was pretty
Bumblebee was
cool.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bumblebee
But
was good.
yeah, as far as the Michael Bay ones go, when the second one came out, I was just wasn't the second one where they like immediately killed Optimus? They're like people
Yeah,
were
they
in
did.
an
Yeah,
uproar when
he was barely in it, and I swear to God, the film was like 6 hours long. I just remember being
yeah,
like, "Are they still in the desert?" But that is
yeah.
that would be like you would love Randall just to talk about Transformers films now, wouldn't you? You just
Yeah.
Oh my
you'd enjoy
God,
it
yeah.
like so
Yeah.
much. It would be great. So yeah, great. That's a very very good scene. And I also thought saying about the cast a bit earlier that because it was Endgame, because Jane Silent Bob Strike Back did feel like Endgame. I honestly thought with Clerks II, like they might drop like a few of the regular people. I remember thinking like when I watched it this time, like Ben Affleck's in it again, Jason Lee's in it again,
Mhm.
but no, he's just gone with it. Like he's just,
Yeah.
even though they're new characters, they're different characters, right? I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jason Lee's appearance is great as well. Like just in
Yeah, he's
terms of
great.
like
Yeah,
short appearance that is just
All right, pickle fucker, right?
yeah.
yeah,
And it's the weirdest little kind of snippet of a story that is just kind of very that that feels like Clerks 1 to an extent, where it's just kind of like this is somebody who's come in and they are talking about this specific thing.
Right.
And it worked so well. I completely forgotten about like how long his scene was. In my head I was like, oh, it's just like a short thing, because I remembered Ben Affleck's being like literally just
yeah. Ben Affleck's is quick. Yeah, it's
yeah.
quick.
And for some reason I thought Jason Lee's was the same, but I've forgotten that he like actually gets into a conversation with them. And it sets up the next bit as well. Like that's the really cool thing. Like I really like the scene where they go karting.
Oh yeah.
Yes, that's a
There's
good
something
scene as
really
well.
nice about that. And it really kind of like sets the bar for like their friendship in this kind of film, where it's the whole thing is kind of about like how do two friends kind of communicate. Like one is wanting to move ahead with his life and the other is like sort of satisfied with his life. And yeah, the go-karting scene I feel like is kind of your first step to where you get ultimately that conversation in the prison. It's just really really nice, and a great song to choose as well. Like there's
Yeah, it's
something
good.
so nice about that scene.
Yeah, what a great soundtrack that film has.
Yeah, it's a really good soundtrack. It's another thing Kevin Smith's very good at, isn't it? Like with
Yeah.
the soundtracks for those sort of films, especially. Not so much of like Strike Back and stuff. Jane Silent Bob Strike Back. That's just a bunch
Oh,
of
I love that
scores.
soundtrack too. I own that
It
one.
is, yeah. I love the Clerks ones though. He's very good. He reminds me a bit of he puts a lot of thought into the soundtrack. Like there are
Yeah.
some people just shoot it. My wife and I watched the film the other day, and there was not one song that fitted with the film. It was just like, we're gonna put this song in. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense. It was that shitty one that I told you about, Nick, the one with Chris Evans and
Oh, the
one on
Ghost of You or whatever
Apple.
it is.
Yeah,
The Ghost of
Ghost.
You? The Ghost?
Ghosted.
Ghosted,
Yeah,
that's it.
it
Boy,
was. I
that
mean,
makes me want to watch it anyway, even though the
It's
music.
it's really corny. You can see Chris Evans having a really good time, but man, they're just like they're just at this like I don't know like marketplace, and it's just the most random song put over the top, and then there's like a chase, and then there's another song, but none of it makes sense. Like there's no connection to the music to what's going on in the film, and I was just like, well, I don't know what's going on. But anyway, Kevin Smith, he cares. So that's the point. I need to stop ranting about other things that I'm annoyed about, like Transformers and this Chris Evans
Sure.
film.
It happens though when you're a
It does happen.
podcaster.
Yeah.
I really liked Rosario Dawson. I thought she was great.
Oh my
Like
God,
she's
yeah.
so good in that role. And I reading about it, like I didn't know how many people were actually like Kevin Smith wanted for the role. Like it was a lot. Like it says it in the book, and I think it says online as well. Like he asked like bunches of actresses, like high end actresses, and then the only one who agreed was Rosario Dawson because she read the sexy stud scene, and
Oh
she was
yes.
like it's too good, like it's too good to turn down, like this whole thing is too good to turn down, which makes me love her even more, because I already think she's a great actress, and
yeah.
and there's the fact that she's like, I don't know, it's not that I don't think other people would. I think Bryce Dallas Howard, is that how you say it?
Yes.
Yeah. She was up for the role, but then she did Lady in the Water instead. But I love the fact that someone could read the
Really?
script and be like, wow, like there's a donkey, there's a guy, things are going to happen. I'm in.
Her first like piece of dialogue as well is about ass to mouth, isn't it? Like that's the
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
when her character appears, that's her
Yeah.
first thing, which is pretty memorable in terms of like, what's your
It's
opening
like
bit of dialogue?
let's set the bar really low, and then let's everyone will know straight away you're a team player. She's really good, and she's
Oh yeah.
you know, she bounces off well with from Brian Halloran. I just can't say names. What's wrong with me? It's too many children. It's just names everywhere. So but they have a good because I don't think they would actually I don't know. I think Dante is quite an odd looking character. Like I know it's an actual person, but I don't think he's the like I don't know like you know he's not like an A-list look, but
Sure.
they just blend very well together and they're very good. The dialogue bounces off each other and everything, and it's you know she's really good. Like I was just yeah I think she's awesome in the role.
I mean, I really liked her before that film, but that film made me just crush so hard. I've had a crush on her for years, and it all just comes from Clerks II.
Yeah.
She was actually in town here within the last year, and I was going to go, but I was like, there's almost like too much nerves. Like, if I can't
Yeah.
bring her home with me, I don't want to go see her.
You don't want to go see it, yeah.
I
She's
do.
great in it.
I did, but you know, it wouldn't be the experience. I guess that I would want. You know, I mean, be
Yeah,
like,
she's
oh,
just
bless your little heart for being a fan. Move along, and like let the next
yeah.
person come up.
Let's
kind of a
talk.
thing.
Yeah.
Let's go and dance on a rooftop to Jackson 5. And
Oh, I'd take her up on that in a heartbeat.
yeah, that's a really good scene as well.
Yeah.
That scene as well is fully Dante just like it feels like he's just completely letting go, like, and because it gets cut short a little bit, like he's just for those minutes, it's like my life is okay. Like look at this woman. I know he's obviously got someone else he's engaged to, but that's a really good scene as well. Like you know, like the gaze between the two of them and everything like that is spot on. And again, music choice, spot on.
Yeah. That whole sequence always gets me as well. I think that the first time I saw that, because I can't remember if I saw this in the cinema or not. What would I have been? I would have been like 14, I think, something like that, 14, 15. So I can't remember if I would have seen it in the cinema, but I just remember when I watched that the like ABC scene, I was just like, this is something that's really special. Like, this film has sort of done loads of things, and now in the middle of it, it's just dropped kind of like a musical, like just a showcase of random things.
A very sincere film that doesn't take itself too seriously.
And it always hits really well because it is just all about kind of setting up that relationship and the kind of spark between them. But it's just done in a way that it sort of encapsulates the whole world, like involving Jay and Silent Bob in it. And that kind of thing. I feel like it would have been easier, like if it was any other director or any other writer, they would have just done the scene between Dante and Becky, and it would have just focused on the two of them. But because it's Kevin Smith, it's sort of like you brought in everyone, and you get a feel for it because you see like Randall dancing to it and Elias and everything. It's just it is a really kind of special scene that stands out, I think. Always gets me.
I would agree. And I think this film is probably the best that Jay and Silent Bob have ever been.
Yeah, I've got that written down as well. 100%. I agree with that. There's the best. I don't know why. Like sometimes I think they're a little bit more mature in it. I don't know if that's even possible, but they seem to have like come of age. Like they're just like they're very Jay and Silent Bob, but they're just. It's like we've all like it couldn't be without them now either. Like any of these films, obviously, like they're part of the furniture, but they're I don't know. They just seem. I don't know. They just seem. I don't know. Yeah, the best they've been in any of them. I don't know. I don't even know how that makes sense, but I definitely feel it.
I've been trying to put my finger on it too. And I don't have a definitive answer. I guess sometimes Jay came off as a little bit annoying to me. And this is going to sound silly, but as much as I love Strikes Back, for some reason Jay's wardrobe, like just very long, like the big baggy pants, the coat almost to his knees, his long ass hair. He just looked very long. He looked, I don't know. I love the way they looked, the way they acted. Their humor was spot on. It's just like the accumulation of all these years of playing the character, like boom, like they finally like fully, not to say that they weren't doing Jay and Silent Bob good before, because they definitely were, but this just seemed to perfectly fit those characters, their representation this time around.
I wonder if maybe it's. I mean, I wonder if it's because we've just come off Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. So for a long gap of time, like Nick said, nothing's really happened. So we all just remember that film. But then when it gets to this one, there aren't really any hijinks from either of them in this film. Like, I mean, Jay dances at the beginning, but that's not really affecting anything. But in Mallrats, they have like a plan to like wreck the stage, and Silent Bob's flying from the rafters and stuff. And in Dogma, they're like trying to save the world, and they're like doing a bunch of crazy shit and everything. But in this, they don't really do, or not that I remember anyway. They don't really do anything that
I don't think so. I mean, it's just
that nuts, which I think makes them, because they're still Jay and Silent Bob. They're still like pushing their drugs and stuff like that, and they're involved in the watching the sex show, and they're saying their lines and everything like, but they're not doing anything that would, I don't know, that would make them a bit more annoying. I don't know if that even makes sense either, but it just feels like they're at like a really good level in this film.
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly agree. It's the best representation of Jay and Silent Bob.
I do love Jay's like when he's dancing at the beginning and he's putting on like the lip gloss.
Oh, the Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs, it's just so stupid, but it's like a really good, because like put down this, and because obviously they're normally at the quick stop and then they're not there, and then they follow them as well. It's just very good.
Yeah, I think they that was the thing I was going to say, is like the Good White Horses scene is just, it's always just, that's probably like their most sort of like they're up to mischief thing in this film is when they just decide to put that on and just go for it. The rest of it is like they're almost just like innocent bystanders to the rest of the story. Like the bit where Jay's taking a piss outside the door and it like slams into it.
It's so stupid. It's so stupid because obviously it's just like what the fuck and stuff like that. It's just like no matter what he says, no one actually cares what he has to say. So he gets smacked by the door and he says what the fuck, and then just people just keep walking. Like there's no it doesn't matter. So even Silent Bob doesn't get half time.
The delivery of that "what the fuck" is perfect. The way he just shouts it, because wasn't it the second time it happened? Like in that scene, like it happened once, and then someone else came out with more force.
It's the second time. It's really stupid.
Yeah.
But moving on to like the second of the three really fucking stupid but amazing things has to be the pillow pants scene, right? That is the most ridiculous dialogue.
But it's the fact that it's so serious as well. Like the music,
it is so serious.
Everything gets very
Randall's
dark.
like, not Randall. Elias is like kind of whispering it under his breath, like it's a secret. Like it's because of pillow pants. It's like, and it's that's why I like Elias, even in Clerks III and stuff like that, which I know we'll talk about later. But like Randall and Elias really have a good chemistry as well. The two actors have a really good chemistry, and it's just Randall's face. That half the thing, it's just the same with the Lord of the Rings thing. Half the stuff is just Randall's face. Like his expressions, so good, because it's the face we would all give if someone was saying it to us, but we were their friend, and you were trying to be like, yeah, right, yeah, pillow pants. But he's just like, pillow pants, because you want to say that sometimes when someone's telling you something that's utterly ridiculous, but you're trying to go with it, right?
Right.
But Randall was just like so straight up about it, just kind of like, it's just fucking mental. But I need to know a lot more. Like, okay, tell me more about pillow pants. It's such a stupid thing as well. Like again, like I know we said like where did Kevin Smith come up from? I would like to know, but where did that come from? Pillow pants, so stupid.
It's hard to say, man, but I mean, how brilliant. And yeah, Randall's face really does help. They were both so good in that scene because, like you said, Elias is almost whispering and almost like he's possessed, almost talking to himself in a kind of way. And Randall's face, is just showing the amount of horror that's, happening in front of him. But at the same time, he's got to hear more. He's just like, keep going.
But because it gets better as well, right? Especially like, have you guys even kissed yet? So we would kiss. But because of Listerfield, the fuck is going on? So stupid. It's so stupid, but it's absolutely brilliant. I can't remember though if that comes before or after the Lord of the Rings thing. I feel like it's quite early on.
I think it is quite early on.
I think. Is it before?
I think it's before. I think it's like their first sort of main interaction, like just those two.
Okay. I think it's after the Transformers thing. So the Transformers thing is their first interaction where Elias.
How the Transformers are a slight against God.
Yeah. So stupid. But if I go and see a film, I said to Nick before about Anchorman as well. Like I really struggled to not remember the thing that made me laugh so much earlier. And I remember when the pillow pants thing happened, like even just a couple of scenes later, I started laughing again, thinking about the pillow pants scene. And like there are people around me like don't have a clue what I find so funny, but I just imagine it all again. Like now, just when we were talking, like if you were to watch this video back, as Jeramy's talking, I'm laughing because I'm already thinking about Listerfiend in my head. It's so stupid. So
Oh my
I love
God.
it. I love it.
I
And
knew somebody, I worked with somebody who was very much like Elias, at an age where you probably shouldn't be that close with your folks, but is, and just I could so picture him riding to work with his parents all whistling the same song. Like could have totally seen it. But me and another guy who also loved Kevin Smith, we used to behind his back call him Pillow Pants.
Oh, poor guy, poor Elias.
He never knew. Oh yeah, poor Elias.
Poor Elias. I mean, he has. It's crazy. I mean, obviously, when we do talk about Clerks III, he has a pretty good journey, doesn't he? As well, like Kevin Smith writes him in pretty significantly in the third one, but in this, he gets a lot of. For someone, I don't know what he was in before this either. I have no idea what he's in before, but he gets a huge amount of like
what Trevor was
time.
in before Clerks, you mean?
Yeah.
Not much. I actually got to talk to him last year. He said the only other thing he had done was actually a movie that was it. Is it what's Randall's real name? Jeff Anderson.
Yeah.
A film that he had done, an independent project. He had auditioned and played a part in that, and that was it. And
yeah, I do remember now. I actually think I remember. You can see, didn't he say as well that it was Kevin Smith saw him in that? That's what got him this role.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I do remember that, hearing that now. Well, I mean, he's great, isn't he? He's really good as well.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I'm just saying everyone's great, as I normally do in these things when I love something so much. But he's his how he kept it together. I've never seen any. I've seen some deleted scenes, but I don't know how many takes this would have taken. There's no way you keep a straight face recording half of the scenes Elias is in without cracking up.
Do you have the Clerks II DVD? Because there's like a whole extra disc that's like an hour documentary with Kevin Smith, and then there's like a whole nother hour disc of nothing but behind the scenes bloopers, and it is fantastic.
I think
they're
not
on
watched
YouTube,
the
actually.
Yeah, I think some. I remember at the time, because if I remember right, this was quite big on like MySpace when it released as well. I remember watching a few of the behind the scene things on the MySpace page when it released, because Kevin Smith was like recording a lot, but I've never watched the special features on the DVD, which I probably should. But I can imagine if there was a deleted scene reel, like it must just be them laughing all the time.
It's pretty damn humorous. I've watched it a few times. Yeah, but like I said, I think all those are on YouTube now in their entirety.
Okay.
But,
if I ever see Clerks II pop up on YouTube for whatever reason, I mean, especially because we've been doing so many of these in depths, it always comes up with the Lord of the Rings one, and that's like I'll watch that, and then I'm normally done. Then I'm pretty happy with my life at that point. So
right,
I'll dive in a bit deeper and see. I'd love to see the outtakes and everything. It must be great.
Quick question. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you go, Jeremy.
I was just going to ask you guys, since Clerks II, I mean, aside from Reboot and Clerks III, I know he's done a bunch of other films, but do all those other films, I know like Yoga Hosers and Tusk, those aren't considered within the View Askew verse, right? Was it only been the two movies since Clerks II that fall within that universe, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, so he sort of backdoor brought in, because we're going to cover it, but Zack and Miri Make a Porno.
Oh yes,
because there's one character in Zack and Miri that pops up in Reboot, which is why we thought we'd cover it for the podcast. Is essentially because this one character I find hilarious, and when he popped up in Reboot, I was like, yes, I needed more. So it's good.
Right, so my third of the really, really funny scenes is the sort of ending with the sex show with the donkey and the Kinky Kelly. Oh, Kinky Kelly is the donkey. I can't remember which way around it is. This is how bad I am with names. I definitely wasn't going to remember what the donkey was called, or which way around it was. That's a really, again, that scene is really, when you think about it, you think Kevin Smith's been involved in something where someone has planned something and it's gone really fucking wrong.
Right.
where they've ended up being in Hollywood and stuff like that. It's ridiculous, and it's really really funny. The whole setup is really funny because Randall is so excited about this sex show that he's organised for Dante, and like randomly Jay and Silent Bob are there, and Elias is high as a kite, and I love the fact that the guy comes out with the donkey and he's dancing for ages before they're like even questioning like what is about to happen. And when Randall pokes his head through the curtain, he's like, "There's no one there. Like there's no one else there." And it's and they all just kind of go with it as well. Then they all just grab their beers and they're like,
yeah, just
we're just gonna let this happen now, and they're all tilting their head. As
they
the
were
guy goes
prepared
down.
to see fucked up shit that night, and they just rolled with it. Like it's not the kind we were expecting, but okay, let's do it.
Yeah, let's just go with it, roll with it. It's very funny. Like Elias as well, when he's like says he's got a boner and everything like that, and just Jay's reaction to him is kind of like, "What did you just say?" Like, it's so stupid as well. And the fact that Rosario Dawson's character comes in halfway through it as well, which is just again perfect because she's not even angry about it. She's just kind of like she almost doesn't want to not see it as well.
Yeah, like the bit where she wants to run back in to watch it, where she's like, "We can talk about this, but right now this."
Yeah, we've got to go see this.
They go back in. Can't look away.
Yeah, I found out as well through reading about things that the guy who plays Kinky Kelly, no, he's the stud.
He's the sexy stud.
He's the sexy stud.
Yes.
So they couldn't find anyone to play the role, so they actually got one of the crew.
Oh, really?
To do it, and he's actually like he's done several things before and after this. Can't remember his name now. I did write it down somewhere. Hold on. Zach Knudsen. So he's done like some documentaries and everything like that. But yeah,
really?
Kevin Smith got him involved, and I mean he went for it. Like there was no he's got those assless chaps, and he's gyrating and everything, and then he mimics what he was going to do to Kinky Kelly. So it's fair play to him. I mean, you got to imagine that's the sort of role that you're going to be remembered for. Like when you're trying to get other gigs right down the line. Like, yes, like what have you done before? It's like, oh wow, I did this. I was like, yeah, you're the sexy stud.
Oh, you're the donkey fucker.
You're the donkey fucker, yeah. So well hired. So yeah, but I think that seems really good as well. Like it's a very good I feel like climax is the wrong word. It's a good it's a good bit. So
there's I think it's in the behind the scenes, or I don't know if I heard it on Tell 'em Steve Dave. Do you guys listen to Tell 'em Steve Dave at all?
No, I've heard of it, but I've not listened to it.
That's probably the one thing from the View Askew, anything that I've devoured the most. I've been listening to those guys for years. But Brian Johnson, him and Walt Flanagan, they grew up with Kevin. And Brian talks about that scene where sexy stud gets behind the donkey. And remember when he spits in his hand?
Yes.
He said that him and Kevin had always had just a long running joke between themselves about that very thing. I don't know if the donkey was in play, but how somebody's getting ready to insert themselves and they go to spit in their hand and it's just an unnecessary amount and it goes everywhere. And he said that after 2 or 3 shots, they got the perfect shot. And in the documentary, they slow it down where he spits and you just see webs of saliva shoot through his fingers and stuff. It was so fucking funny, especially after hearing that story that they had just sat around in their spare time laughing about that scene, and he finally got to make it and put it in one of his films.
That's it. That's definitely where things like Pillow Pants and stuff came from, right? Like there's some conversation that they've had and it's come about and it's like that's going in, like no matter what, because obviously they have to get this stuff approved, right, as well. Like I don't know, so I was surprised that Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was an 18, but I feel like only because of the way the world is now, like 18s are probably 15s now. But was this an 18 as well? Do you know, Nick or Jeremy? What rated R, I guess it would be in the American.
My DVD says 15.
15. Oh, okay.
Yeah, you guys must have an entirely different rating system. Yeah, I think it's pretty sure it was R here. Pretty sure.
Yeah. But I mean it's different now. Like I was saying on the last one, there's so many things now.
I mean, it would have to be with a donkey show in it. It has to be rated R, right? I was about to look it up, but it seems like a waste of time.
I would have thought. I mean, again, because of that scene, I would have thought, maybe an 18. But apparently, no. In England, we do not care. In 2006, our standards were so low
Yeah,
now you're making me
okay
look it up.
Yeah.
we're okay for 15-year-olds to go away thinking about those donkey shows and Pillow Pants and Lister Fiend and all that stuff.
You can track the decline in the age rate that in 2001
Yeah, right.
Strike Back came out in 18, and by 2006 Clerks II is 15 with the donkey show, and it's fine.
Because Clerks II is a lot worse, like language wise, and like the things they talk about compared to Jay and Silent. I mean, I guess Jay and Silent Bob have Jay does go down on a nun.
Yeah, Jay and Silent Bob was more of like a live action cartoon. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like I don't know. So it was far more sillier. Not that Clerks 2 wasn't, but like we said, there were serious undertones to it.
Yeah, and I think that's the other, like, because we're kind of getting towards the end of the film now. When they do the final montage and they rebuild Quick Stop and stuff, there's something really comforting about watching that, where you're just like, oh, yes. And it is like that kind of like uplifting ending, which in the context of it is really weird, because if you just said to somebody in passing, you're like, oh yeah, and at the end of the film they rebuild the convenience store, people would just be like, what? Like, why is that? why is that like an exciting or an emotional thing? But in the sense of like these characters in this world and stuff, it really is like a hard hitting moment. And then to like pull back and it fades into black and white is just one of those things where you're just like, oof.
With another perfect song during that transition. But
yeah,
you're right. I think out of context, anybody would kind of wince and be like, say what? They built a convenience store? But we've been on their journey with them, and we, just like them in that moment, realize like, this is where you guys belong. This is your happy place, whether you are aware of it or not.
Yeah.
Do you think when I watched, because I hadn't seen Clerks, the first time I saw Clerks 3 was now a couple of months ago, but I watched Clerks 2 after I'd seen Clerks 3, and I wasn't a huge fan of Clerks 3 for several reasons.
Yeah.
I liked it, but nowhere near the level I like Clerks 2, and nowhere near the level I like Clerks.
No.
But when I watched Clerks 2 again, and it transitioned to black and white, and like one of you just said, sorry, about this their like happy place where they're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not think that was the perfect ending? Like, because I think it was I kind of think, I don't know if there needed to be more.
Yeah, I don't know.
Especially after seeing Clerks 3, like I feel like,
because I quite like.
I know it's only 2 films, but they kind of gone full circle.
I do get the full circle thing, but I really like Clerks 3, and I think the reason I like it is because I can't remember who I said it to. It was somebody who was texting about it, and I said that whenever you watch a View Askew film, it's like jumping in and seeing friends that you haven't seen for a while. It's like you're just going into a world that you're like, oh yeah, I know this world, and these people are cool, and it's funny and it's enjoyable. And Clerks 3 is like, beside Chasing Amy is like a different kind of thing, but like Clerks 3 is like heavy in that it pretty much deals with morality and like kind of questioning where you are after having a health scare in some way, in this case a heart attack. And I think that underpins the whole film, like the sense of time is limited and what are you going to do with the time you got.
Right.
And then when they, again, we'll get into it in detail when we do Clerks 3, but I feel like the only way to really tie off Clerks is to have seen somebody's full life and to have seen them in terms of like they did the thing that they achieved. And for Dante, it was always, as you kind of see in this film, it's he wants the wife, the kids, he wants that kind of like stability, and that's the thing that he doesn't get out of life. Like he, especially watching this back, I hadn't even thought about the fact that Becky must have died like what, couple of years
immediately after that
movie. Yeah because she just got pregnant at the start of the film. She's a little bit pregnant at the end of Clerks 2, and then I don't think she has the baby, does she? She's pregnant when she dies.
No.
And that's the thing that you kind of realize is like the third one is about Randall in the sense of like he wants to make something of his life, but for Dante he's already done that. Like he met the one and had his kind of moment, and then it's I can't really move past that. So that's what I thought was really nice about Clerks 3, and I think that's the difference here, is that even though it does end in like a perfect kind of symmetry way with the first one, there is still always that kind of like, what's the next kind of like life thing that's waiting around the corner for them. And I feel like where Clerks 3 ends it is that both of them have kind of hit their trajectory. They've both hit something. And yeah, that was why I really liked it. And watching this back, it was kind of more apparent that I was just kind of like, yeah, I think you can kind of see it is very much about life. And that's that's what all the Clerks films have been about, is like just living and kind of enjoying everything you've got. And 3 is kind of the finale of all that. So yeah,
I'm not anti Clerks 3 either. I just, when I watched Clerks 2 after seeing Clerks 3, and because I wasn't overly sold on Clerks 3, although I enjoyed a good chunk of it, I just thought, because of probably how much I like Clerks 2, I was like, yeah, I didn't need more after that, really. But I'm glad there was. I always thought if ever they announced Clerks 3, I'd be really excited. But I don't know, probably because I kind of thought there'd be a little bit more Clerks 2 in there, and there are elements of it, but it's also different as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean, I'm somewhere between you guys. I definitely think Clerks 2 would have been a perfect ending, but not to say I didn't enjoy Clerks 3. I definitely did. Brooke, Jack, and I were all in tears in the theater at the end of that film, because it really hit you. But at the same time, probably not really necessary. A few things that really irked me about that one, and I won't spend much time on this because I know we're here to talk about Clerks 2, but I'm not going to be here for your Clerks 3 one, so just let me get it off my chest quick. Is that first, Jay and Silent Bob weren't really working for me. Silent Bob wasn't at all silent. He just was pretty much Kevin Smith dressed up like Silent Bob. You know what I mean? I love the character Elias, and I feel like he was horribly underused in this movie. The hospital scene where he's bawling his eyes out, that was pretty funny. I like his whole arc of like, God's let me down. I'm going to look towards Satan now. But it was just a bit much. Like every single scene was just like the most eccentric, like goth outfit, and the fact that his silent partner, that seemed really stupid to me, and just kind of like a shoehorning in his daughter's boyfriend just because it's his daughter's boyfriend. You know what I mean? And how he's always putting his daughter in the films too anymore. That kind of irritates me. But I don't know. Clerks 2 is, I think, the peak of the Kevin Smith mountain for me personally. Everything was leading up to Clerks 2, and that was just, it hit so well that I think it'd be hard to live up to that. Zack and Miri was great. I've heard Red State was a great film. I haven't seen that one yet. And again, Clerks 3, I did enjoy. I mean, I enjoyed it enough. I went out the day it came out and bought it on DVD. I had to have it, had to be part of the collection. But Clerks 2 is the peak, I think, of that mountain. Everything, what Kevin Smith was before Clerks 2, the whole first half of his career there, like, I adored Kevin Smith so much. And I'm not saying I don't anymore, but it seems like he's a completely different person now than he was in those early days. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't know. He just seems like kind of like a caricature of himself, what he used to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, definitely with the Clerks 2 bit being like the peak for me. I think that's probably why when I rewatched it after Clerks 0, I was like, yeah, I would have been good with that. Yeah. I kind of feel the same. Although I still enjoyed Jay and Silent Bob, the reboot, I kind of feel like that probably was. I don't think that was necessary either, because as Nick said, because Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back felt like the end game of everything.
Right.
Yeah. Like there's now been 2 points, because I said before, like, it was kind of, there was a choice that that was Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back was going to be the last thing they did, and then it was like maybe the last thing they did was just Jay and Silent Bob, but they carried on with the other characters, and then you had Clerks 2, which are great because I loved it so much, and then there was the reboot, and then there was Clerks 3. So again, not a knock on either Clerks 3 or reboot, because I enjoyed both of them as well, but I just like Clerks 2 so much, and I thought when it went to black and white at the end, and it just showed them where they were, and Nick's right as well, you have to show like probably a lot more of these characters to get that full conclusion, but
right,
I just felt like it was good.
I agree.
More so, but again, when I saw Clerks 2 again, if someone said to me they're going to make I was really excited when they announced Clerks 3. Like, I was like, this is going to be great.
I've even
just a bit underwhelmed.
I've heard tale that he's been thinking about a Clerks 4. Now tell me where and how that happens,
Yeah,
especially with Dante gone.
because in
I don't
the
know.
post credits of Clerks III, doesn't he say that like Randall continues making movies until he's like 90 or something? That there's like
Yeah, he did.
there's a bit in the credits where Kevin Smith talks about it.
I can't recall.
I'm
Yeah,
surprised though, because like wasn't the guy who played Randall? I don't think he was that keen on doing Clerks 3.
yeah, I
He
think for
wasn't that keen on doing
two,
Clerks too.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
three pulled them both back in for kind of the what I always took it as anyway was that it was kind of the last one, that like this is definitively like the end of the Clerks because it's going to change it. And yeah, I don't know. I'd hope that there is another one, because I do feel like where Clerks III ends it is kind of
Yeah.
pitch perfect for me, in that it's the first time somebody's like died in the View Askew universe. Like that was just hard enough. And as you say, that Clerks II has such a good ending as well, that it's almost like, you know, at the end of that, I'm sure I would have said, yeah, I don't need another one. But I'm just really like hoping that like next is Twilight of the Mallrats. Like I want another Mallrats set in.
I would be up for
current
another
day.
Mallrats would be great,
Yeah.
because that's a bunch of different characters. I know Jane and Silent Bob are in there as well, but Jane and Silent Bob can carry on. They might as well carry on now, right?
Yeah.
The films, but you don't have to have Dante and Randall's characters. I know they'll both probably be in it in different roles. Like, you know, Dante was a weatherman in like
Right.
Dogma, wasn't it, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So they could do that, but yeah, I really like the ending to Clerks. I really like the transition. I really like the way it ends, especially after the way it begins with it being on fire. And yeah, I mean, I'm now more confused than ever, because I'm gonna have to watch Clerks 3 again. But now after what you said, Nick, as well, like I feel like maybe I've missed the whole point of Clerks 3. But I just yeah, I'm yeah, I will I really like Clerks 2. If that's not obvious from this whole conversation.
Yeah, it's the best. It's
the point.
by far the best.
I think there's, like from my heart, like even though I do really enjoy Clerks 3, the humor in Clerks 2 is better. Like the humor in Clerks 2 feels really, really refined. And like when you get to like rebooting Clerks 3, that feels more stoner comedy, kind of like it's more out there, a little bit like Strike Back, where Strike Back's humor is like, some of it's great, but some of it is so outrageous you're like, whoa. But yeah, Clerks 2 is probably the kind of like pinnacle of like hand in hand, you've got outrageousness and realism, and they just sit perfectly for this film.
I just feel like with Clerks 2, like he wasn't trying to. There was no like he wasn't. I don't think he was really trying to please anyone. Like he wasn't trying to make Clerks again. He wasn't trying to make it like for, you know, it wasn't like, it felt like the chains were fully off. Like he wasn't under the pressure that he was with Mallrats for it to succeed. You know, he wasn't under the pressure. Well, I don't know how much pressure was a Dogma, but obviously it's a very taboo subject, isn't it? Religion. So
yeah,
you know, although he definitely went there, like he probably could have, for Kevin Smith, he probably could have gone more in there. But for Clerks 2, it just kind of felt like, you know, this is my budget. This is the great cast I've got. I'm going to write what I want. I'm going to put in what I can, and it just felt like really like relaxed. And I think that's why it's so funny, because it just feels like there's no weight to it. I don't know if that makes any sense. It's just
right.
I don't know, very like very fucking funny. Just yeah, good stuff.
Another thing about really quick Clerks 3 that I think because he rewrote it several times. Like I think there were like 2 or 3 drafts before they came up with the final one. But I do feel like Rosario Dawson's involvement in Clerks 3, because I feel like between Clerks 2 and Clerks 3, she got a lot more popular. Like she climbed the star list. And I think that it was probably a lot more difficult for Kevin Smith to nail her down. So it seemed to me in watching the film, it's like, okay, he could only talk her into like 1 day of shooting. Like, so how do we write that into this story? I could be totally wrong, but that's just kind of what I took from it. But it was a shame, because I was looking so forward to seeing her character in there, because she was one of the spotlights of Clerks 2. She was such a great character in that film.
I mean, it probably is. It probably does come down to like scheduling, right, and things going on in her life, because she's got a lot bigger. But I mean, it really depends on how Kevin Smith wanted to write Dante's character. Like, did he need to find that like that one thing that was just like going to crush him so much into how he is in Clerks 3? But
I think
I don't know what else you do short of killing Randall and him realizing that he needed Randall.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess he touches upon it, doesn't he? So
because I think one of the other drafts of it, I think what I read was that it was it was like the quick stop got like damaged or broken or something by like Hurricane Katrina or like some storm.
Oh, okay.
And it was about, I think it was about Randall trying to like basically get people to fund it to pull it back together to pick it up.
Wow, I didn't know that, because I mean that kind of shit really happened to, I mean, in Jersey, to a lot of his friends. I know Kevin Smith doesn't live over there anymore, but on Tell 'Em Steve Dave, you hear all about how their houses got destroyed by that hurricane. Love when they write in that real stuff.
It always sounded like it was dark in the sense of like somebody was going to die, whether it was Randall or Dante. And so like I completely get it, Jeremy, that like having without Becky, you do feel like there is something missing. I do think like the scene that she's in really poignant though, where it's just like the two of them kind of move on together.
No, I think it was perfect. I think he wrote it perfectly with what he got. I just feel like I don't feel like that was probably his original idea. I feel like his original draft, his original concept probably had her in there a lot more. But again, this is all strictly assumption. I'm just guessing. I haven't read that anywhere, or just guessing.
That was the thing. I was kind of thinking like if it had been like the same story and Becky was in it, like it would have been so much more heartbreaking if he had died and had wife and kid. Like that, like obviously it's heartbreaking already that she's dead and she died, pregnant, and he had to kind of go on with that. But like the version of that where he leaves the two of them behind is also pretty intense. So I would be really curious, like going into Clerks III, to find out like more about like that writing process and stuff. But yeah, for Clerks II, which obviously is what we're here for, I think everything.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's good to.
I keep diverting back.
I divert.
We do it
all the time. Like we've had like podcasts that have even touched on the subject we're supposed to talk about. So just the way it goes.
I know how that goes.
So, right, before we wrap up, is there anything else either of you wanted to talk to us, audience, about Clerks II?
I mean, as far as all my notes go, I think I covered everything and then some. What about you, Nick?
Yeah, I'm good. I think I'm ready for what's next.
Ready for what's next. All right, fantastic. Well, that is the end of our latest in-depth episode covering Clerks II. If you want to find more of our podcasts or find Nick and I on our social media channels, you can find us on Twitter at ConsistentlyPod, on Instagram at ConsistentlyPod, and you can search Consistently Podcast on YouTube and you can see us in person on the video screen, because who doesn't want to look at us? And now you get to look at Jeremy as well. Hooray. So
I don't know if that's a good selling point. You might cut that out.
No, it's the numbers are gonna go through the roof now.
Right. We'll see.
Jeremy, where can people find you?
You can find us at cannedairpodcast.com, or you can just search Canned Air Podcast in any of your podcast player of choices. But we every week we get together, have a new guest on the show, and we start each episode off talking in our retro roundtable, just talking about maybe our favorite movies, or pick an actor and talk about their best films, or just very much kind of like stuff like this. It's different every week, but we always, like I said, have a new guest, whether it be a comic creator, voice actor, screen actor. We've had a lot of cool people on the show. I mean, even pertaining to the conversation today, we've had some View Askew people on, like Trevor Furman, who was Elias, got to talk to at a con. So I got about a 5-minute interview with him. Jason Mewes, that's about 5 or 6 years ago, got an interview with him, again, only like 5 minutes. And then we had, what was her name? Marilyn Gigliotti on the show, who was in Clerks 1 and 3, Veronica, Dante's girlfriend.
Yeah.
So, those kind of interviews, plus many more. Check us out. Yeah, cannedairpodcast.com.
Yeah, everyone should give it a listen as well, and give our old stuff a listen stuff. God, I'm running out of I can't talk anymore. So check all that out, and whilst we're still here, then Nick and I have a Kickstarter out for our latest comic called Lone Tales Volume 1. So if you're interested in comics, it's sort of 2 comics in one. One is a horror sci-fi and the other is a thriller. So if you're interested, then again, go to our social media and give it a look and see if you're interested in backing us because we want the comic out in the world. Help us.
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, thanks. All right, brilliant. Then nice to see you, Jeremy. Thank you for joining us very much.
The pleasure has been all mine. Been looking very much forward to this, and I had a blast. So thank you guys.
Yeah, it was awesome.
That was
Nick,
a blast.
we'll see each other again soon.
We'll see each other soon, yeah. In person as well.
In person. I'm going to England this week, which I've got,
nice.
God knows when this podcast comes out, so it may have already happened, but I'll see you then. All right, thank you everyone for listening. Take care.
Cool. See ya.
Bye. Bye.